Hi, my name is Dr. Fred Sylvester from New Hanover Chiropractic, and welcome to this edition of Health Talk. Again, another return guest, Adrienne Delgado. She is owner-operator of bodymetrix. She graduated from Westchester, been in the field for a couple years.
A few.
Co-author or an author of a book. Now I hear that you do cookbooks, all kinds of different things. So you're expanding on many different fronts at this point. And it's a privilege that our community has access to you and your expertise and your knowledge. Today we're going to talk about one of the hottest topics that kind of has hit the circuit here. We're talking about the weight loss drugs, right? And the glucagon-like peptide 1, which is also referred to as GLP-1, right?
Yep.
What is it?
Yeah. Some people might have referred to it as the semaglutides or semaglutides, depending on who's pronouncing it.
Yeah.
But they have hit our culture in a storm.
Absolutely.
Right? Like they are everywhere, and my job is just to help people use them safely.
Absolutely.
Right? So GLP-1 medications, they actually work on two different parts of the body specifically. Okay. So number one, from a digestive standpoint, they actually slow down the digestive process, okay, which helps you feel full longer.
Okay, makes
right?
sense.
So that would be helpful, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you felt fuller longer, then you wouldn't need to eat quite as frequently.
Absolutely.
But the second part where it works is actually in the brain, where it you may have heard this terminology called food noise. It quiets the food noise.
Correct.
And so it actually decreases the cravings.
Okay.
It decreases hunger. It decreases the desire to fulfill cravings.
Right. Act on it.
Yeah, all of that. So so basically, you're not hungry because you're not thinking about food, okay, and you feel full all the time from a stomach standpoint, and that's why they're so powerful, because they're working on both sides of the hunger.
So here's an interesting thing, so when we start, and we've talked about many different things over the years about nutrition and that type of stuff. If these medications, are being utilized and they're decreasing us to have the consumption of food at this point, and we have these things called macronutrients and micronutrients and this type of stuff, and you're not consuming anymore. Does that have any side effects, I guess, with the medications themselves? Is there stuff that goes on with that we have to be concerned about that if you're not just consuming?
Yeah. So short-term and long-term side effects. So short-term side effects, we have some clients that feel nauseous all the time, to the point sometimes they're vomiting because
normal?
Again,
is that
no.
Okay? That's
Well,
not normal,
I don't think
right?
we should normalize it. I think people have normalized it for the sake of being thin or losing weight. They're like, if I have to throw up, so be it. I don't think that's okay, right? Because long-term damage, you could be doing esophageal damage. Obviously, the burning of your esophagus, throat, very important things to think about. But most people are willing to overlook that for the sake of losing weight. It's very interesting because we've never seen this phenomenon before in any other medication. Right? If you're taking a cholesterol-lowering medication and it makes you vomit, you probably would not take it.
Yeah, you probably stop, right?
You would stop right away.
I think when we were in chiropractic school, when you would throw up, that's called bulimia. Where you're doing something like that. So again.
Right, but people are willing to overlook that. They're like, well, I only vomit on the day of my injections. Okay. That is not okay, but we've normalized it now, which is something obviously we need to address.
For sure.
So short-term effects, again, nausea, vomiting. Some people will experience diarrhea. I notice more, though, struggling with constipation. Again, anytime that you change gut motility and you're slowing that process down, you don't have the bulk to push through. And so many of my clients struggle with constipation and reflux as well, because if that food's going to sit there for longer periods of time, it has more of a chance to come back up. So I'm noticing more of delayed transit time, which has implications they don't feel as comfortable. So those would be some of the short-term ramifications. Long-term, though, micronutrient deficiencies, right?
That's what we're talking about,
yeah, if somebody is eating less calories. So I find, and with these medications, everybody responds a little bit different. So it's not like everybody loses 2 pounds per week, as they are ramping up their dosage. Some people don't lose any weight. Some people lose hardly anything. Some people lose at a very high rate. I think it depends on which medication they're taking. They're not all the same. So I will have some that bounce around between, whether they're doing Wegovy or they're doing Zepbound, right? Because they can get different results. So just because you don't get results with one doesn't mean you won't get results with a different one. But long-term effects is we're seeing deficiencies, right? Because if you're taking your calories down from maybe normally eating around a 2,000 calorie diet to eating around 800 calories, right? You're not getting in enough food to meet the nutrient demands of your body. Especially if you're not conscientious about what you're choosing. So I have clients that, you know, are still continuing to go get fast food. They just eat less of the fast food because they don't have the capacity to eat a full volume. But that fast food doesn't have any nutrient value, right? So yes, they're eating less calories to create a weight loss, but they're not doing it in a way that is healthy for their bodies. And long term, are we going to see more osteoporosis? Are we going to see more anemia? Or the biggest thing is sarcopenia, which is loss of muscle.
Which is something that, you know, I wanted to kind of touch base on at this point because, you know, one of the things that we had talked about prior to the show is protein intake, right? And how essential protein is. You know, our chromosomal DNA produces over 300 billion proteins a day. Our mitochondrial DNA produces 13 proteins a day that are essential for healing and recovery and energy at this type of stuff. So if we're seeing, you know, micro and macronutrients being decreased at this point, what is the slant or the bend on protein, and where does that stand?
Yeah. So any of our clients that come into the office on these medications, and again, I want to make sure that I'm very clear. I'm not anti-GLP-1 meds. Nope, not at all. I really do believe that they can be very helpful for some individuals.
And you're seeing it firsthand, I would assume.
Firsthand, yes. And I want to support, again, that person's ability to make their best decisions. I just want them to be informed. And so if somebody's coming into the office, we're making sure that they understand what are the potential deficiencies that can take place and how do we correct for that, right? How do we prioritize things like protein in their diet? Most people, again, aren't eating enough protein just without the medications. And so if you come into the office, we're going to do a body composition screen on you to see what is your baseline muscle mass. In a typical weight loss diet, say a person who loses 10 pounds, usually about 7 to 8 pounds of that will be fat, maybe 2 to 3 pounds of that will be muscle. There is inevitable muscle loss when you lose weight on a traditional diet exercise plan. Our job at our company is we try to minimize that as much as possible because we know how important your muscle mass is to driving your basal metabolic rate, how much you burn calories. But in the beginning stages of the GLP-1 meds, we were noticing more of a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio of fat loss to muscle loss to connective tissue.
So a whole different world then.
That's scary, right? Because we do know that these medications only work when you're taking them. All right? So much like a hypertensive med, right? If you're taking that medication, the only time your blood pressure is lower is if you're taking it. If you stop taking it, you're going to blood pressure is going to go back up again. And so with these medications, they're only working when you take them. If at some point in time you're no longer taking them because maybe you can't get a script for it any longer, or your insurance company denies you access, your weight will most likely return to your former number, if not more. Okay? Now the problem with that is if you don't have the muscle mass or the structure, the connective tissue, things like your arches, your knees, your hips, right? If that has all taken a hit and been compromised, you're not going to have the framework to support that larger body mass. And we're going to, I always say, if you're looking for a new career path, orthopedic medicine might be the way to go because it might be very lucrative with the long-term effects. We don't know. So my job is just to really help people, if they decide that these medications are right for them, you know, protect their body both now and in the future so that they're not facing some of those long-term health implications.
And I think that, you know, in the preparation for the show, and I think we also discussed this, there doesn't seem to be I'll say a framework of how the meds are being used, when you should come off them, how you come off them at this point. And so I think that, you know, in this infancy of these medications, your role is probably essential, that you can help people guide through them so you're forming the baseline and the foundation for overall health. We don't want to just change out here on the outside and not change on the inside and keep up the changes on the inside as well. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, you know, I can speak for my company. We've done a really good job at formulating relationships with a lot of the physicians in the area.
Highly respected.
And so We work alongside of them, so we recommend body composition screens every 4 weeks for all of our GLP-1 clients, where traditionally we do every 10 weeks to measure progress. But for them, we just want to keep our pulse on what's going on the inside, so that way if something is trending in the wrong direction too quickly, we can step in and make different recommendations. And then we're sending all of those body comp results to their family physicians to make sure that we're staying in contact. A lot of physicians, again, it's new. We don't have a roadmap.
That's what I'm saying. That's what it's really. That's why I wanted to really do this show, is because of where we are and how new this is, and it's kind of uncharted territory.
It is. They're not going anywhere. No. I can tell you that.
Not at all.
They're too profitable. And there's also, we're already 3rd, 4th, and 5th stages deep into trials at this point.
Absolutely.
So they're not going to go anywhere, but we're going to get better at learning about them and understanding how we can protect people if they decide to make this choice. The biggest misconception about this drug that I want to make sure I lay to rest is this is not a medication that you go on for a month or 2. I'm just going to do this to try to reset. I'm just going to do this to lose 10 pounds, and then I'm going to come off of it.
Right.
That's not how the medication works. So you just have to be aware that if you want to maintain the results that you got when you were on the medication, you're going to have to stay on the medication.
Right.
All right. And I think that's where a lot of my clients are like, oh.
Didn't realize that. So whether that's just not a conversation that was had, as they acquired it, now these GLP-1s, they're accessible beyond your family physician. Which is interesting, because we were talking about, I didn't even realize about the compound pharmacy industry.
Pharmacies, yes.
And we were talking about that, and what is that? I mean, how does that all work?
So there was a major shortage, right? As most people started to become aware of this and they wanted access to the medication, the companies weren't ready to fulfill those scripts, right? And so compound pharmacies came along and really helped bridge the gap to provide access to more people, which was helpful. Now, will those compound pharmacies go away? I don't think so. No. There's some speculation that, well, now that, Eli Lilly and all these other third parties, all these companies that produce it can meet the demands, those compound pharmacies will go away. I don't think they will. Again, it's profitable, but we'll see. But we're at a point now where people can join Weight Watchers who have a direct relationship with a compounding pharmacy, and so they will get the medication through them. So there's a lot of companies jumping on board right now to provide that service. And I can't speak for all those companies. Are they meeting with their clients and, presenting the pros and cons, or is it more of, here's your script, good luck, and let us know if you need something.
If you need something,
right? And so I see where my role really comes into being here is just providing education first and foremost, right? I want to keep all my people safe. Again, not against it, not for it. I'm more neutral. I'm pro-patient. But I just want to make sure that they understand all of this, and somebody has sat down with them and really laid everything out so that they can make their next best decision. That's all I want for them.
And I think what's really interesting, again, I always kind of come back to the prep of these shows, is that one of the things that I had read as well is whether it's, we'll say weight loss medications or any other type of, restricted calorie diet, or however you want to look at it. The thread that I had found when you had said that most people will put their weight back on potentially after, is that the most successful people are the people who do a combination of a couple different things, have kind of a trial and error. They do one, we'll say phase of weight loss in one company, and they do it in they hit a plateau and then they try something else. And then they do that and they hit another plateau and then they try something else. And the concept comes down to what I'm understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it comes down to, it's a lifestyle, right? And so it's a lifestyle that allows you to become who you are. And all of us have these, issues that stand in front of us that, you can be in the holidays and put an extra 5 pounds on during the holidays, but then what happens, you kind of get yourself recentered and you go back and you do your exercise or eat a little bit better, and then you drop that weight back off. So do you think it's true that most people who are the most successful on weight loss management, after it's all said and done, whatever they're doing, is they've tried multiple things and they keep trying things to keep weight off?
Yeah, I think you have to be flexible. I think
Absolutely.
you have to constantly, because your body's not the same as it was 10 years ago.
For sure.
And I think where most people get really frustrated is they try to do what they did in the past.
Absolutely.
And I have to remind them, but you're not that same person.
Right.
You know, where you may not have had kids before and now you've got kids. That changes things.
That sure
right? does. Or you might be going through perimenopause. That changes things.
Right.
And so being able to adapt to the different changes in your body as it moves through the life cycle. But we do have some standards that we know can be very helpful. So especially on the GLP-1 medications, right? We want to make sure that they are putting in equal effort to the medication.
Sure.
So as I tell my clients every time, like, you have to be willing to do your part. We're not just going to let these medications do its thing and you're going to sit down and be a passive consumer, right? So first thing is, are we prioritizing protein in your diet? We know that protein helps build muscle.
Right.
We know that you can lose a lot of muscle on this because of the weight loss that happens so quickly. So we want to make sure that we're prioritizing that. Most Americans are not hitting their protein needs.
Right.
All right. If you even look at the RDAs, I'm embarrassed to say what the RDAs are for protein, because they're not for thriving, they're for survival.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we tend to do a little bit higher protein to meet the needs of a person that wants to live and move and not just survive.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And then encouraging some type of resistance training, right? Obviously, to build muscle or to at least preserve the muscle, we need to break it down.
Sure.
So some type of strength training, and then we want to build that muscle back up with protein. Those are probably two of the biggest priorities that I encourage my clients on these medications to prioritize because of the long-term effects. And and like you said, longevity part, it's finding what works for them and what that looks like and their routines, and again, how do we help them reach that?
Real quick, the GLP-1, is it naturally produced in the body?
It is.
I never knew that.
Yes, it is actually in the intestine.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the amount that we create in our body doesn't touch the volume of these injections. That's why they're so powerful.
Yeah.
When we can inject it directly into the bloodstream, that's where we're getting these really great results. So,
Absolutely.
Does your body naturally produce it? Yes. We try to encourage that naturally by increasing protein in the diet and fiber.
Right.
Fiber also helps with that.
Sure.
When we put those two things together, we can, I won't say we can get close,
Right.
but we can mimic those
Yeah,
same
results.
principles.
So just in a kind of a short synopsis, what would a patient expect to experience if they came into your office? They're under the GLP-1s and that type of stuff, and how would you manage them through?
So again, we would take an assessment, right? Again, look at their medical history, their medication list, their preferences on food, as well as their routines and work schedule, kids, all the things that impact their decisions throughout the day. We'll also be looking very closely at their food, like a food recall.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, to see if we can identify any type of deficiencies that might cause problems down the road. So
Sure.
are they hitting their calcium? Are they hitting their iron? Are they hitting, are they getting enough protein in their diet?
Sure.
Are we getting our B vitamins? Are we doing all the things that we need to do to make sure that they're safe at this time right now? We will do the body composition screens. As I mentioned, we do them every 4 weeks.
Very key.
To keep a pulse, and then that information does get sent over to their doctor, just so that they have we have as many pairs of eyes on this person as possible, so that they are safe.
Right.
Right. I think, again, not knowing the long-term effects, safety is always everybody's major concern.
Absolutely.
And the more people that we can invite into this conversation, the better off that client is going to be.
I love that. Yeah.
And then just helping them create habits. If that client eventually does want to get off the medication and they don't want to be on it long term, what do those lifestyle changes look like?
Sure.
Right? And just helping them start to practice with them, right, if you will, and start to get comfortable with them, so that way if and when they choose to stop taking it, they have some of those foundational principles already set to help them be more successful.
Take-home message. What is it to our community when you're in this type of environment with all this chemistry going on and all these, innovations? I'm sure it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I would say make sure you have somebody overseeing your care, right? So yes, you have your physician, but this is where a registered dietitian can be
Absolutely.
very helpful and a critical part of the team at just, again, not only making sure you're healthy and safe now, but also in the future.
For sure.
And when you don't have somebody overlooking over your shoulder, just making sure that you're safe, that's where the ball can drop. And again, we want everybody to live their best life.
Absolutely.
We don't want, if they choose to make this decision, we just want to help make sure that they stay informed and they stay educated. Somebody's watching out for deficiencies that could happen, so that they can, again, live their best life.
Well, when you look at a person who is walking their talk, you are that one. And so I think to have anybody to have you in their corner is already many steps in the right direction. So always appreciate you coming on. You are full of a wealth of information. Our community is of value for having you in our community, and so I think it's an exceptional, and we always welcome you back.
Oh, thank you.
Good day and good health.